Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at the most egregious times other companies tried to rip off PlayStation games.
Forrest, I'm losing the signal. I just saw a group of armed men enter the tomb.
They're what?
But before we dive in, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Light of Motiram.
I call you forth.
As of writing, Light of Motiram hasn't been released yet, but since Sony felt the need to sue Tencent due to how big of a Horizon ripoff it is, I felt the need to include it. The game takes place in a futuristic open world where players face off against various robot animals. Even the way humans dress is almost one-to-one with how they look in the Horizon series. The lawsuit claims that Tencent began developing the game before requesting the Horizon license from Sony for a potential spin-off. It seems that when Sony declined, Tencent just kept making their own game. Several elements like crafting and multiplayer aren't in Horizon. Still, one look, and it's obvious this is an especially egregious copycat. M&Ms, shell-shocked.
Where are your hard hats?
I have an unusually hard shell.
Plenty of 3D platformers found ways to differentiate themselves. For Crash Bandicoot, it was the hallway-like level design, though it still mixed in some classic 2D side-scrolling. This was a winning formula that kickstarted a franchise. Apparently, the people behind M&Ms thought they could just copy and paste that into their own adventure. M&Ms Shell-Shocked follows the yellow M&M, attempting to stop a group of rabid M&M minis from destroying a factory. While there are some vehicle-based levels, most of them are the exact layout of those you'd find in Crash. The hallway design, including some chases where you run towards the camera, and some 2D sections. Even the movement is ripped from Crash, as you use a spin attack and bounce on boxes.
Urgent memo from upstairs.
Ow-woo? Memo.
Skyler and Plux. Adventure on Clover Island.
End of the line, kitty cats. Get her!
Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter have more than a few things in common, other than both being PlayStation IPs. The developers behind Skyler and Plux attempted to combine elements from both franchises into a single game. The result is a bit of a mixed bag. I don't want to be too harsh, the team was clearly inspired by their love for both franchises, but everything is a shallow recreation.
Please get rid of these monsters!
Don't you worry your blobby little head.
You collect various gadgets as you go, use a jetpack and a grapple arm that all feels very Ratchet and Clank. The plot also revolves around uncovering secrets of an ancient race, a la Precursor Legacy, though Plux, the plucky sidekick, isn't nearly as enjoyable as Daxter. The game's short length and technical issues don't help its case either.
Hey, you're alive.
You've never had to prove anything to me, sir.
Roadkill. Twisted Metal was a huge hit for PlayStation, and naturally got its fair share of clones. Roadkill is a post-apocalyptic vehicular combat game where you seek revenge against the gang leader who tried to kill you. Although you only play as one person, as opposed to the crazed roster of Twisted Metal, you do unlock different vehicles as you go. And the aesthetic, setting, and gameplay are all very reminiscent of Sony's franchise. Additionally, the mission structure, UI, and sandbox level design were lifted from Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto series. While not a PlayStation IP, those games were huge on the PS2 at the time of Roadkill's release, and very much served as additional inspiration.
That's funny, boss. Funny? What do you mean, funny?
Jung Rhythm. When Parappa the Rapper was released on the OG PlayStation, most of us hadn't seen anything like it. The art style was unique, and the rhythm gameplay was fun and intuitive. 1 year after it was released in Japan, Sega released Jung Rhythm for the Saturn. Although it doesn't have the same paper cutout style, its art and design is still extremely similar. More importantly, for the purposes of this list, the setup of each scenario and the gameplay are essentially lifted straight from Parappa, with only minor changes made. The text, rhythm inputs, and scale to show how well you're doing are just in different places. Most of us never experienced Jung Rhythm though, since it was never released outside of Japan. Ruff Trigger, the Vanocore Conspiracy. Here we have a much more blatant knockoff of the Ratchet and Clank formula. Ruff Trigger is a bounty hunter hired for a search and rescue mission of strange little creatures called piglots. Although there's no robot pal riding on Ruff's back, he does collect more wacky guns as he progresses through his mission, and smashes through crates to nab similar money and ammo pickups. The one differentiating factor is that Ruff sometimes turns into a werewolf where he doesn't use weapons. But other than that, it's a pretty obvious case of trying to ride Ratchet's coattails. Reviewers at the time were quick to point out the similarities, as well as vocalize how Ruff did everything much worse.
Hey Ruff, what's going on?
There's something about this mission that doesn't jibe.
WWE Crush Hour. You'd expect a wrestling game to feature, wrestling, but Crush Hour took a different route, choosing to copy Twisted Metal. It's even easier to see the similarities here than in Roadkill. You have a cast of characters to choose from, each with their own unique vehicles, and spend your time blowing the others to smithereens. The plot is also almost as ridiculous. Vince McMahon takes control of every network and, while putting his wrestlers in everything imaginable, creates a destruction derby-style contest.
Undertaker, shooting in all directions.
Even though Twisted Metal isn't exactly complicated, WWE Crush Hour is even more simplistic, and not in a good way. It's really just mindless mayhem without much skill involved, making it seem like a pretty lazy attempt of a clone. Conan. God of War is one of the biggest PlayStation brands, and so naturally has received its fair share of ripoffs. 2007's take on Conan the Barbarian just may be the most shameless though. The developers clearly set out to copy Kratos. Everything from the UI to the gore, from the gameplay to the camera, looks and feels like the Spartans' earlier adventures. Hell, even one of the first game's composers, Mike Reagan, was hired to work on this game. This all works to the game's detriment. It, of course, doesn't do anything as well as what it tried to copy, which many pointed out, and unsurprisingly, it was a pretty big financial bomb. Unearthed, Trail of Ibn Battuta. Even with most of the ripoffs we've talked about, they at least tried to bring something from the original games that was enjoyable. But in the case of Unearthed, it's a broken, annoying mess. Very clearly trying to bring in the Uncharted crowd, it follows a Nathan Drake wannabe following in the footsteps of famed Muslim explorer Ibn Battuta. Beyond the flagrant copying, it was also slammed for poor visuals and mechanics. It was meant to be an episodic release, but it only ever got a single episode. The developers then announced a full sequel in 2018 that still has yet to be released. And here's hoping it never will. The Last Hope: Dead Zone Survival. Going hand in hand with Unearthed for shameless shovelware cash grab copy of a PlayStation IP is The Last Hope. An obvious ripoff of The Last of Us, it follows a man escorting a young girl through a zombie-infested apocalypse. It dropped unceremoniously on the Nintendo Switch eShop in late June 2023, and was gone a little over a month later. Even its trailers were taken down due to copyright claims from Sony. The knockoff plot and character designs were bad enough, but the game had a multitude of other issues. When players weren't being assaulted by horrendous visuals and janky mechanics, the game would just straight up crash. It's no wonder Sony wanted to remove it from the face of the earth. Have you played any of these knockoffs? Do you know of any other games that blatantly ripped off PlayStation? Share your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you next time.